Hey, true believers, Chris Mack coming at you today with Superman, The Man of Steel, issue 18. If we are going over this issue, then y'all can assume automatically. For those of you in the know, should I say, should know what route we're going down. For those of you that don't know, this is the first issue in the Death of Superman arc. Decided it was high time that we went over this, since I've always talked about how this was the first series that I ever read, and to finally have all the individual issues instead of just kind of hanging on to the Superman 45 Death issue and the collected trade, it's nice to have the whole run, so that's what we're going to be diving into today. So it says right here at the beginning of the end, Doomsday. And I just love how they don't even really show what the threat looks like. They just show how the threat's escaping. Now, before we dive into it, the print date on this book was December 1992, and I remember that quite well. And just like I said, somewhere on Earth. Now, from what I understand, at the end of each issue, they were kind of teasing this, of the issues leading up to this one. At the end of each book, it was showing Doomsday's fists pounding against the Earth. And you see him coming up, and it just says, Doom. And I just love it. Very great composition. I mean, look at this Dutch angle we get of Doomsday as he's coming out of the Earth. And we kind of get this duality going on. So we see him, this big menace, moving up through the Earth's crust over to the Man of Steel flying over Metropolis. Now, before we dive into this, again, December 1992 was the print date. Story by Louise Simonson. Penciler was John Bogdanov. So that's what we're going to go with. Feel free to make me fun of me down in the comments. The letter was Bill Oakley. Colorist was Glenn Whitmore. The assistant was Jennifer Frank. Editor was Mike Carlin. And then Superman was created by Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster. Oh, man, look at the line work on this. It's that boom, boom, boom. Oh, and the other thing, if Louise Simonson sounds familiar to you, that is the Louise Simonson that worked with Ann Nocenti and Chris Claremont all those years on X-Men. And at this point, this one she was, I don't want to say she was muscled out, but she just kind of had enough of what was going on. So she sort of gave up on the New Mutants, gave them to Rob Liefeld, and kind of got Chris Claremont eventually just kind of gave up the X-Men to Jim Lee. So that aside, I always felt sorry for this little kid. I think his name's Kevin. And he's looking up at Superman fly, and he's like, he's so smart. He saved me 2 times. He's my friend. I wish I could tell him, but I just can't. So there's only one thing left to do. So he ends up buying this fluorescent paint. He's like, hey, you don't plan on using that on the subway walls, are you, kid? No, of course not. And then what leads into the stakes, which these are the Underworlders. Now, for those of you that have read comics longer before than me, Louise Simonson was, and Ann Nocenti helped Chris Claremont create the Morlocks. So I'm wondering when she came over to DC and started working on the Man of Steel with, I think it was John Byrne. Correct me if I'm wrong. Anyway, that was the Adventures of Superman. No, it was the Man of Steel. Anyway, I haven't had enough coffee. Don't care at this moment. But I'm just wondering if the Underworlders were kind of like her way of making her own Morlocks here, because they're in the subway. They live underground of Metropolis. The Morlocks live under New York, and they're freaks, outcasts. Morlocks the same. So it's interesting, especially since that one looks a lot like Mask. Now here again, talking about this kid, he goes, "Why did I keep thinking I'm doing something dumb?" And you can kind of see here it says Children's Society. So this is basically an orphanage. He goes, "Maybe I better go over my plan one more time. The monsters in the sewers say they got my mama. And they'll kill her if I tell anybody that they want to make war on the city. But what if they're lying? What if they're tricking me? What if they don't have my mama at all?" And you feel for this kid, because his whole thing is he wants his mom. But they can't be lying, can they? Mama didn't come back to get me from the orphanage because she couldn't. Because she's the monster's prisoner. She wants to come, but she can't. But I'll save her. And she'll hug me and tell me how brave I am and ask me to stay with her always. And I'll bring her out. And then I'll tell Superman about the monster's plan. There are going to be a lot more forks in this tunnel down here. I hope this works. All right, Mama. We can't get lost now. And you can hear, the way that it's written and you read it in your head, you can hear both the determination and excitedness for this boy, but you can also hear this underlining denial, like he doesn't even believe his own plan. And it hurts so much. Now, after saying all that, I like this little bit of levity we get. So Lois is at the Daily Planet. She gets a note saying, send Superman to the basement under the West Side Power Station. And it just says signed to friends. So at this point, I'm like, who is this? And of course, you get the whole 90s vibe. And she's like, oh, Clark didn't check his mail again, which is what that is there. And she's like, oh, I'll just leave a message for him on his computer. You guys are so high tech. Yeah. We're sure high tech. So at this point, since it has a GUI, which is a graphic user interface, I wonder if that would be like Windows 3.1 or which one was it that was the craze? The Apple II. I bet you 10 it's one of those two machines that they based that off of. Because again, this is 1992. Again, so we get this over arc of the Underworlders, but I like the beat, the pacing that it takes for Doomsday, where it just says elsewhere. We have no idea where this guy is. We don't have no idea who he is at this point. And we just see a flock of birds. Cheep, cheep. And you're thinking, oh, sheep. And that's about the most words we get out of Doomsday. Is it? Now, real quick, before we go any further, I was watching, I can't remember if it was YouTube or Twitter or something. I was watching a little interview with Dan Jurgens. And he was talking about how when the death of Superman happened, again, this is back when the internet was still semi-primitive, so they used to have Superman conferences, so you'd have the writers of Superman, the Adventures of Superman, the Man of Steel, Action Comics, and then whatever else they had at the time. And they'd sit there with DC Editorial to get the story straight. And that's what they did. They said it took days on the death of Superman for all the writers to coordinate. And I think the artists, too. So it's just very cool idea that pre-internet where you could just have a Zoom meeting now. Back then they had to dish out money to fly people from all corners of the world and probably the U.S. because I don't know. Anyway, that aside. But it paid off because even though the death trope out of this story, and you could tell that this was a cash grab for DC, don't get me wrong. But still, it's one of those stories that sticks with you and resonates. And again, I love how with Louise Simonson writing this, you can see the type of person that Clark and Superman is. So we're going to kind of skip past some of the stakes of Lois going under the power plant without Superman. And then we get some moments of truth with Kevin, and I feel so sorry for him. And again, going back to Superman. He's like, I know in Gotham they shine a light in the sky, but it's on the ground. He's like, I just hope my idea works. Please, Superman, see the signal? Keith? Superman, it's you. I knew you'd come. And again, going back to what I'm talking about in terms of like Clark, that he's this strong alien person that could rip the planet in half. He's moved moons. But he's this gentle person that loves humans. He just wants to live his life, and he uses his powers for good. And it just shines here with the Man of Steel. Even when these underworlders have these war machines and they want to wage war on the surface, which that is an awesome splash page. I mean, I love the angles, love the old inking, just good memories, especially back in the day when they do shadows and they kind of get the detail. Everything would always fade into this purple look. That's just something I'm always accustomed to. Or when someone's hair is supposed to be black, they always put in the little bit of blue swirl. And that's what I talked about in the action figure reviews in terms of color, is I wish that was something that just for the little Easter egg for long-time comic book readers, it'd be kind of neat to see some of these figures have that blue highlight in their hair. That's just been really cool. But anyway, going back to the story. And of course, Louise Simonson, I like that she adds, even though this is high stakes, and we got this big overweighing of Doomsday on our head, they find a moment of levity here where this goat guy's like, I got the grenade cluster, but where do I put it? What does Superman care what's destroyed in this? Hey, idiot, he got the grenade. I have about had it with your distractions, Cluster. So eat diversion 7. You just get this whole this Looney Tune thing. It's just hilarious, and then it just looks like the coyote. Or the coyote, not the coyote, coyote. Hey, good thing, Cluster, invulnerable. And then after you see this, the kind of that calm moment with Keith, you see how the Man of Steel, when it's time to act, you see how he just shoves a grenade down an invulnerable monster's neck, taking a full blast to the chest, and all the while doing what he can to not kill. You know, he wants to get to the bottom of this, but he doesn't want to take lives unless it's absolutely necessary. That's why it's such a great, kind of going on another tangent here, is the Man of Steel. We've gone over this issue, so I'll put a card up somewhere. I think it's Superman Annual number 10 from the 80s, when it's the, what do you get for the man that has everything or whatever, and Jason Todd, Batman, and Wonder Woman go to visit Superman at the Fortress of Solitude for his birthday, and he has that alien implant on his chest from Mongol. Oh, I was going somewhere with that. I just totally lost it. Oh my God. I was making a point with that. Anyway, point lost. Just know that it's a damn good rate. Oh! So, going back to how Superman won't kill people if he can't. When Superman sees how in the annual that we were just talking about, that I finally remembered my point, Mongol has Superman almost on the ropes, and he goes, "Happy birthday, Kryptonian." And you see Clark's face just go completely dark, and his eyes light up, and he doesn't say no quips, doesn't say, let's try to reason this out. He just goes, burn, and hits Mongol at full force. Doesn't kill him, which you would think that it was full deserving of what happens, but you can see when Superman has had enough. And again, Superman and Lois, they were able to find peace for the Underworlders. And she's like, don't you dare punch out Charlie, which this was the man that helped lead Lois to the Underworlders. And she knows him because she helps him at the soup kitchen from time to time, or feed him, should I say. And she's like, don't punch out Charlie. He's the reason we knew about the Underworld scheme. We did. And I love how she just kicks him in the ass. It's just a great little moment. And here, for those of you that don't know, they're not married yet. No, they're just dating, I think, at this point. But yeah, this just the way that they kick off the beginning of the Doomsday arc. It starts out kind of fun, but you see that lingering threat of Doomsday heading towards, what do you call it? Heading towards Metropolis. Now, one thing I want to talk about too, and I saw this on a TikTok, let me know if I'm wrong, but they talk about how in film, whenever they have like a hero's journey or whatever, they're usually heading towards the right, and the villain usually heading towards the left. I think that's what they said. But I just like that they use this sort of traditional look here to show the symmetry and powers, the matching powers, that's what I mean by symmetry, of these two powerhouses, and that this is not something that's going to be easily defeated. So guys, if you've never read The Death of Superman, highly recommend go and support your local comic shop and pick up a copy of Superman the Man of Steel, issue 18. This is a series you definitely want in your collection. Who cares if it's not worth $1 million jillion? It's a great story and definitely part of the mythos of Superman. If you've enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate if you take a moment to like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you want to hit that fancy little Doomsday bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, so you guys will get notified. Come to the channel, and we love talking with you and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below, or our social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.